The worst blizzard in a generation screamed through the valley, but inside Kevin Morris's cabin, the real enemy was the silence between the dying crackles of the fire.
Kevin, the wood is almost gone. Jenny can't stop shivering. Her fever won't break. Not in this cold.
The old man's brick coffin. I laughed at him. Now my daughter is freezing. If that bed really holds heat, maybe it's the only chance.
The last flame flickered weakly over a single charred log, then surrendered to the frost.
Bundle, Jenny. We're leaving. David Reeves's place.
David's. You mocked him to the whole town.
I know what I did. I also know we won't last the night here.
With that, Kevin Morris began wrapping his child in every blanket they owned, his pride cracking under the weight of a father's love 3 months earlier. While golden leaves still clung to the aspens, David Reeves began a project that would baffle the entire settlement.
What are we building, Grandpa? We already have a hearth.
Something that remembers the fire long after it goes out.
The rhythmic scrape of mortar drew the attention of a neighbor riding by. Kevin Morris reined in his horse, peering through the window with growing amusement.
Building a brick coffin to sleep in. Old man, you've truly lost your mind.
Winter has a long memory, Kevin. We'll see what this bed remembers.
A bed made of stone. You'll freeze solid on that thing, but don't come crying to me for firewood.
Kevin spurred his horse and rode off, still chuckling while David returned to his mortar without a trace of anger.
Why do they laugh at you, Grandpa?
Because they haven't been cold enough to learn, Noah. But winter teaches everyone. Eventually.
That evening, the general store fire crackled louder than usual, fueled by Kevin Morris's newest tale.
I saw David Reeves laying bricks in his cabin to sleep on. A stone coffin under his own roof.
A few men laughed, slapping the counter. Kevin's wife, Sarah, buying flour, turned away, her lips pressed tight.
The old man's lost his mind. A brick bed won't hold heat. He'll be frozen solid by Christmas.
Sarah said nothing, but the worry in her eyes was not for David. It was for the husband she no longer recognized. While the town laughed, David Reeves kept laying bricks, each one a quiet answer to the noise outside.
Grandpa, people are talking at the store. They say you are building a grave for yourself.
Let them talk. There's more wisdom in an old Chinese secret than in all their roaring fireplaces.
Why do they call it a grave? What does this bed really do?
It does what a good fire does. It remembers, and memory matters when the cold forgets nobody.
After 2 weeks of careful work, the brick platform was finished, long and low, with a small iron door at one end and a narrow flue pipe disappearing into the wall.
Time to give it a heartbeat.
David knelt, fed a handful of dry twigs into the firebox, and struck a spark. The little flames caught quickly.
The smoke won't waste itself in the open. It travels through channels under these bricks before leaving through the flue. That's the secret.
The bricks are getting warm, not hot like a stove, but steady.
That's the point, Noah. The Chinese designed this bed, they call it a kang, to hold gentle heat all night on nothing more than sticks and straw.
Will it really stay warm till morning?
It will. The bricks drink up the fire's warmth and let it out slowly. We'll sleep on it tonight.
Noah pressed his palm against the warming bricks, and for the first time the strange bed felt less like a curiosity and more like a promise.
Winter will tell if it works, but I've trusted worse friends in my life.
When the first hard frosts came, David lit his kang with twigs each night and slept warmer than any man in the valley. Across the lane, Kevin fed log after log into his hearth, yet woke to ice-frosted blankets.
That old fool's probably frozen by now.
But inside David's cabin, the bricks held steady warmth from nothing.
Grandpa, Kevin's wood pile is half gone. Ours hasn't moved.
Night after night, Kevin swung his axe, his pile shrinking while David stood untouched.
This cold will break. Any fool can stay warm if they burn enough wood.
The kang doesn't ask for much. Just a little warmth and patience.
Noah was beginning to understand. His grandfather hadn't built a bed, but a quiet weapon against winter. And in the deepening cold, the real test was only just beginning. Sarah stood at the frost-rimed window every morning, studying the thin smoke from David's chimney.
Kevin, come look. David Reeves hasn't touched his axe in weeks,
So, he's probably freezing and too stubborn to admit it.
but his cabin never ices over. There's always a glow in the window.
Then he must be burning his furniture. Our pile will outlast his tricks.
He swung the axe again, each blow a rejection of the doubts Sarah had planted. Inside David's cabin, the conversation was quiet, measured, entirely different.
The smoke snakes through these channels under the bricks before it escapes. That slow path is what keeps the warmth.
So the longer it takes to leave, the warmer we stay.
Exactly. The bricks remember the heat, and memory matters when the cold forgets nobody.
David knew it was time to stop speaking in riddles. He led Noah to the far end of the bed, where the flue met the wall.
See that metal flue? The smoke doesn't leave straight up. It travels under every brick first, giving its heat away inch by inch.
So the bed is like a long, slow stove, and the chimney is its final breath.
Then David told Noah about a winter long ago on the railroad, when a Chinese worker named Wei saved his life with this very secret.
Wei had built a kang in his tent. The rest of the camp froze while he slept warm. He taught me this secret, told me it could save others.
Why didn't you share it before?
Some secrets need a hard winter to be believed. And sometimes, people need to be cold enough to listen.
Noah stared at the bed, the weight of its ancient wisdom settling on his young shoulders.
One day, Noah, you'll teach others. The secret doesn't belong to us. It belongs to anyone who's cold.
And in that warm cabin, while the first true storm gathered outside, the secret passed from one generation to the next. The storm that had been gathering broke with a savage howl, burying the settlement under wind-driven snow. Inside Kevin's cabin, the fire roared like a beast, but the beast was insatiable.
Burn hotter. You useless thing. We've got plenty left.
Yet by morning, frost bloomed on the interior walls, a mocking testament to the cold's reach. Across the lane, David fed a handful of twigs into his kang, and the bricks answered with a faithful hum of warmth.
A storm like this teaches you the difference between a big fire and a warm one.
For 3 days, the blizzard raged, and every hour, Kevin threw more wood into the flames, his pile halving.
Maybe Sarah was right. No. This is just a bad stretch. Winter doesn't last forever.
Only a few yards away, David's chimney released a faint plume, and his woodpile stood as tall as it had in autumn.
See? He's not even burning anything. He's probably frozen in there.
When the storm finally broke, the morning light revealed the cost. Kevin's once towering woodpile was now a shallow, fading mound.
It's not just luck, Kevin. David's pile hasn't moved in weeks. How are you not seeing this?
I see a stubborn old man too proud to chop wood. He's probably freezing every night.
Then, why do his windows always glow warm? Why does his chimney only smoke a little?
I don't know. Maybe he made a deal with the devil. It doesn't matter. We have our own fire to keep.
By evening, word had spread through the settlement. David Reeves's chimney was barely smoking, and the common verdict was that he was too stubborn to admit defeat.
They're saying the old fool is cold. Good. Let them think that.
But deep in his chest, a cold question had begun to burrow, one he refused to speak aloud. Across the lane, Noah stood at the frosted window, watching the murmuring neighbors, and kept his grandfather's secret warm. He knew the truth would break soon enough, but winter had not yet delivered its final lesson. Then, without warning, the mercury fell to a depth the oldest settlers had never seen. 30 below zero and still dropping.
We'll be fine. I've got enough wood to last a month.
But the cold didn't care for confidence. It gnawed at the fire, devouring logs in half the time.
Kevin, Jenny can't stop coughing. She's so cold, and we're running out.
I have to keep them from seeing it. But the pile is vanishing.
Day after day, the thermometer stayed buried, and the woodpile shrank to a pitiful heap.
We can't keep feeding it like this. There won't be anything left by tomorrow.
Sarah clutched Jenny, her eyes hollow, as the ice crept further up the walls.
If I am wrong, if that old man's bed is warm, then what have I done?
And in the grip of that killing cold, The last ember of his pride began to crumble. The bitter cold spread desperation beyond Kevin's cabin. Across the settlement, woodpiles had become barren patches of frozen earth. Neighbors pried loose floorboards, broke apart chairs. Anything flammable fed the dying fires.
I saw Mrs. Carter burning her dishes. Kevin, they're burning anything that can catch a spark.
And David Reeves, he isn't burning anything at all. What if? No?
Kevin pulled back the curtain, his breath fogging the frozen glass, and stared at David's chimney.
Not even a wisp. He has to be frozen. There's no other explanation.
But even as he thought it, his eyes caught the faint amber glow in David's window.
If he's cold, why is his window still warm? What is that bed doing?
The question gnawed at him, but he couldn't voice it. Not yet. Outside, a few bundled figures trudged through the deepening snow, their own woodpiles nothing but memory. The last log lay on the grate like a dying man, its heat barely reaching the edges of the room.
Kevin, please. Jenny hasn't stopped shivering for hours. We can't sit here and watch her freeze. You said we were prepared. You said he was the fool, but he's warm, and we're dying.
She's right. There's nothing left. Less than nothing. Sarah, we're out. The wood is gone.
Then do something. Anything. I won't let Jenny die because of your stubbornness.
Kevin's gaze found the distant amber glow of David's window, and something inside him finally broke.
Maybe that brick coffin isn't a coffin at all. Maybe it's the warmest place in the valley. Bundle her up. Sarah, we're going to David's.
No one spoke the fear that hung in the air, that they might not make it, but staying meant certain death. Jenny's cough had grown shallow, a dry rasp that tore at the silence. There was no more time to waste. Kevin wrapped every blanket and coat he could find around his daughter, his fingers clumsy with the cloth and the cold.
If the old man turns us away, I'll build a shelter in the snow myself. But she will not die tonight. Sarah, hold my coat. Don't let go, no matter what.
He lifted the heavy latch, and the door flew open with a scream of wind that stole the air from their lungs.
I can't see anything. Kevin, we'll get lost.
Just follow the light. Hold on to me and walk.
And with a prayer caught in his throat, Kevin stepped into the white fury, his family stumbling behind him.
The light. Just keep moving toward the light. Half a mile. That's all.
Behind them, the cabin door banged in the wind, and the last ember of their hearth surrendered to the storm. The blizzard was a living thing, clawing at their faces and stealing the warmth from their bones with every step. Kevin clutched Jenny to his chest, her small form limp beneath the blankets, while Sarah's grip on his coat was the only tether to life.
I called him senile. I announced his coffin to the whole town. Now that coffin might be our only chance.
They fell once, then again, snow packing into their sleeves and boots, the wind stealing their cries.
Kevin, I can't. My legs won't.
Get up, Sarah. We're not dying out here. Jenny needs you. Half a mile. It's nothing. I've walked farther for less. Keep moving.
Then, through the white curtain, a faint amber glow flickered. Impossible, distant, but real. It was no mirage. David Reeves's window was a beacon, and Kevin dragged his family toward it, with the last shreds of his strength. Each step was a war with the wind, but the glow grew larger, and with it a desperate hope. They collapsed against the heavy oak door, Kevin's fist too frozen to lift, the wind still howling behind them.
Kevin, please, knock. She's so still.
He'll open the door and see the man who called him a fool. And he'll be right.
But before his knuckles could touch wood, the door swung inward, and a wave of amber heat spilled into the snow. David Reeves stood in the threshold, his face unreadable, but his eyes held no surprise.
Come in. Quickly. The child is cold.
Kevin tried to speak, but his lips were frozen. Sarah pushed past, carrying Jenny into the embrace of the cabin.
No questions. No, I told you so. Just a welcome for the man who laughed at him.
Noah stood behind his grandfather, a thick wool blanket draped over his arm, his expression neither angry nor forgiving, simply ready. The door swung shut, cutting off the blizzard, and for the first time in days, Kevin felt a warmth not from a fire, but from mercy. The air inside the cabin was thick with a warmth that had no right to exist in such a storm, and the family stood frozen, blinking in disbelief. Kevin's eyes fell to the small iron firebox. Inside, a handful of twigs and bark flickered, yet the bricks radiated a heat that reached every corner.
That's nothing. That's less than nothing. And yet, this is the warmest I've felt in weeks. How? How is this possible?
An old Chinese secret, Kevin. The bed stores the heat. Smoke winds through brick channels before it leaves, giving every degree back to the room.
It's like the bricks are breathing warmth. Oh, Kevin, she's already warmer.
Sarah pressed Jenny to the warm bricks, and the child's shallow breathing steadied, color creeping back into her pale cheeks.
All that wood I burned. All that mockery. And he's been sleeping on scraps, warmer than any of us.
Grandpa said winter would teach everyone. I guess it's teaching you now, Mr. Morris.
No one laughed. The only sound was the wind outside and the soft crackle of twigs that had already done enough. Kevin turned from the firebox, his face raw with the weight of everything he needed to say.
David, I am sorry. I laughed at you. Called you senile. I was a fool.
David didn't answer with words. He simply placed a hand on Kevin's shoulder, the gesture saying what words could not.
Pride nearly froze you, Kevin. But a cold night has a way of warming the heart.
Noah watched from the bedside, his young face holding a pride that had nothing to do with victory.
You said winter would teach everyone. It's teaching all of us now.
The two men, one old and one young, shared a look that needed no translation.
He's not just saving our lives. He's showing me what I've been too blind to see.
The storm outside raged on, but inside, the thaw had already begun. Sarah, holding a now still Jenny, looked at her husband with eyes that held both relief and a silent promise of change. David sensed the shift in Kevin's eyes, the mockery gone, replaced by a hunger to understand.
Come, Kevin. Let me show you the heart of the Kang.
He knelt and traced the brick path with his weathered hand, the same path smoke took before it ever saw daylight.
The smoke travels under every brick before it escapes. That slow journey heats the mass, and the bricks give back that heat for hours.
Then David told a story from his youth, a bitter winter on the railroad, and a Chinese worker named Wei who saved his life.
Wei built a Kang in his tent. The rest of us froze, but he slept. He taught me this secret, told me it could save others.
I want to learn. I need to build one for my family. For anyone who'll listen.
Noah stood silently, but his eyes shone with the knowledge that the secret was finally leaving these walls.
You can learn, Kevin, and you can teach. That's how this secret survives.
Outside, the storm still howled, but inside, a different wind was beginning to blow, one of change. Through the long night, the brick bed hummed its quiet warmth, and the cabin became a world unto itself.
Look, Jenny. A little clay bird. Grandpa makes them by the fire.
Kevin watched his daughter laugh for the first time in days, and a resolve hardened in his chest.
I'll build a dozen of these for the settlement. No more children freezing in this valley.
Then the secret will have done its work. Build them and teach others to build them.
Sarah, tears cutting clean lines through the grime of the storm, turned to David.
You gave us our daughter back. You gave us everything.
It was the bricks that did the real work. I just remembered what an old friend taught me.
By dawn, the first pale light crept through the frost, and the wind had fallen utterly silent. Kevin unlatched the door and stepped into a world reborn. The snow still deep, but the sky impossibly clear. As the sun rose higher, a few cautious heads poked from cabin doors, staring at Kevin Morris, who should have been dead.
It's the brick bed. David Reeves' coffin. It saved us all. Runs on twigs.
A few men trudged closer, their skepticism battling hope, and Kevin grabbed a man's hand and pressed it against the warm brick wall.
Smoke travels under every brick before it leaves. That slow path stores heat all night on nothing but scraps.
One by one, they touched the bricks and felt the impossible. Steady warmth from a handful of twigs.
I mocked him, called it a coffin. But it kept my daughter alive when my hearth died.
By afternoon, A dozen neighbors crowded outside David's door, and the old man himself stood in the frame, calm as ever.
It's called a kang, an old Chinese secret, and it belongs to anyone who's cold.
No one laughed. The mockery had frozen away, leaving only the raw hunger for warmth and wisdom. The secret was no longer hidden in a single cabin. It was beginning to spread, carried by the very man who had once laughed loudest. Spring came gently that year, as if the earth itself remembered the mercy of the bricks, where cabins had stood in desperate cold. Now laughter rose above the sound of trowels and mortar.
Press the bricks firm, Noah. A loose bed wastes heat.
Like this, Grandpa. I can feel the warmth already.
Kevin worked alongside them, his hands rough from learning, his eyes never far from David.
I never thought I'd be grateful to lay bricks, David, but these bricks are the best work I've ever done.
By the time the first bloom appeared, half the settlement had a kang of their own. Noah watched the men who once laughed now kneel beside his grandfather, learning.
The secret is no longer mine, Wei. Now, it belongs to everyone who's cold.
And in the quiet of a spring evening, with the scent of fresh mortar on the breeze, David Reeves finally let himself rest. One evening, in the golden hour, David sat on his kang, Noah beside him, looking over the valley.
She would have loved this. A valley no longer afraid of winter.
Noah held a miniature brick model, tracing the channels his grandfather had taught him so long ago.
You gave them the secret, Grandpa. They'll never freeze again.
The secret was never mine. It belonged to Wei, and now to anyone who needs warmth.
David placed a hand on Noah's shoulder, and a quiet understanding passed between them. Through the window, chimneys rose above cabins, each a silent testament to a truth once laughed at. The brick coffin, mocked by a town, had become the warmest bed in the valley. As dusk fell, the bricks beneath them still glowed with the fire's gentle memory, and in that warm cabin, David Reeves smiled, for winter had finally met its match.